Now that you've found UBN Radio and discovered our quality talk shows, it's time to spread the word to friends, family, and the universe. 24 hours of music and talk radio without limits. That's why people keep coming back for more. That's ubnradio.com.
In the future, talk radio will actually educate, inspire, and make you think. The future is now. Topics and music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
Jump off that exhausting hamster wheel and into balanced living with Dr. Marissa. Her mission, to be a beneficial presence on the planet. Her purpose, to be your personal advocate, to live, love, laugh, learn. Her life motto, don't die wondering. Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Fay on ubnradio.com.
And welcome. You are tuned in to Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa every Tuesday at naturally high noon out of the Sunset Gower Studios in Hollywood, California at Universal Broadcasting Network. And on Thursdays on my CNBC News channel, KCAA AM 1050 at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And if you have tuned in for the first time, this is a show about hope and how you can be happy 88% of the time. So there's no gossip, no scandal, and no K-words. No Kardashian talk at all. Instead, we focus on what is right with the world and balance out all the bad news. We don't talk about the headlines. We talk about the heart lines and looking at solution to all those things that are not working on our planet. And it is St. Patrick's Day. So happy St. Patty's. Woo! Yes, I know you thought I was actually Irish, but I'm not. I'm Chinese, but I love to celebrate anything that has to do with, I was going to say green, but anything that has to do with luck and pots of gold and rainbows. And so happy St. Patrick's Day to all of those who are Irish and all of those who are not, which is just about everybody. So that is the St. Patty's Day. And also thank you to my staff interpreter, Sharon Pierre-Louis, who is here. Yay! Give her some applause. There it is. Because yes, it is another one of my favorite kinds of episodes, which is our radio for our deaf community, thanks to the cameras in the studio that came last year, thanks to Tony Sweet and Universal Broadcasting Network, we're now able to offer programming for our deaf community. And so Sharon does her best to keep up with me and interpret. So thank you, Sharon. And by the way, for those of you who may recognize her, she actually got on a series, an ABC family show called Switched at Birth. So we're going to do a little, there we go. I don't think she's been here since she got that role. So very, very proud of her. And it's also another very special day. It is one of the days between the passing of Martin Luther King and the passing of Gandhi. And we call this the Season for Nonviolence. It was started 18 years ago by the Association of Global New Thought, and my big brother, Dr. Michael Bernard Beckwith, is co-founder and president, and I didn't even know that it actually originated there. For 18 years now, it has the purpose of this campaign is to focus educational and media attention on the philosophy of attaining peace through nonviolent action, as demonstrated by legendary leaders Mahatma Gandhi, Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., Cesar Chavez, President Nelson Mandela, as well as living legends such as His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama of Tibet. Spiritually guided citizen leaders in 900 cities in 67 countries have participated since this campaign began in 1998. So today we are marking and highlighting this season, and my guest is the first winner this year of Agape's International Spiritual Center Season Awards. Orland Bishop is the founder and director of Shade Tree Multicultural Foundation in Los Angeles, where he's pioneered new approaches to creating urban truces and youth mentorship. Please welcome Orland Bishop to my studio.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Marissa. It's good to be here with you.
It is wonderful to have you.
Yes.
Yes. So let's start out with, I haven't used the Wikipedia for a while, so I'm going to say nonviolence, because this whole area of how do you get to peace through war is what my daughter said when she was a teenager. And we currently are always ensconced in war in an effort to bring peace. And so war is violence.
Yes.
Peace is nonviolence. So I wanted us to focus today on all those tough questions that people ask around how can you possibly bring about needed change without getting violent. And the very first questions I wanted to start with is, how can we be nonviolent? Isn't it human nature to be violent? Like, isn't that just our impulse when somebody does something to us we don't like? Our first response is not, bless you, unless you're Mother Teresa, right? Or Martin Luther King. It is to rise up and get mad and do something. So first of all, is violence inherent to humanity?
Well, one has to ask the question, where is the human nature located? Where is human nature located? If we can point to a place within the human constitution that we can say that is human nature, would be the body.
Okay.
The physical body has defense processes, immunity,
fight and flight. Yes.
all the substances. However, that part of human nature is controlled by human supernature,
Okay.
which means thoughts.
Correct.
So we could actually influence our bodies to not react to conditions that may put it into even fight or flight. The critical thing about the body, it must be developed and cared for and nurtured and mature through consciousness.
Okay.
So consciousness is not nature. Consciousness is human, which means the human nature is a collaboration between consciousness and form, body, whereby we could take hold of this organic process and develop it to be able to have a more truthful expression of ourselves.
So you're saying that we can actually choose our thoughts, which then break down the impulse to fight.
To react.
So
yes.
so if humans do get angry, you're saying that we can actually interject a thought that will get us down.
Energies follows thoughts.
Energies follow thoughts. Okay.
Physical, emotional energy follows
Okay. So
thinking.
let's go put the moose on the table, and which is my Canadian version of the elephant in the room.
Yes.
You hear about ISIS. You hear about people beheading innocent people. You hear about Coney taking child soldiers and making them shoot their parents. You see people bombing and the atrocities that come from violence, uncalled for violence. Right. Okay, how do you not go in and eliminate those who are perpetrating the violence?
Yes. Well, some people get to the point where thoughts cannot be shared.
Okay.
Think about violence. It interrupts the processes that people naturally want to be in, which is community or a shared reality, ultimately. Now, we have come to the point in which...
let me back up.
Right.
I don't know about that. I mean, you surround yourself with people who want shared community, who believe that, we're all one. And I believe that. But I'm just going to speak on behalf of some people who will remain unnamed to protect the guilty. But the average American will say, so-and-so are taking our jobs, overseas.
Yes.
Or so-and-so is hurting us, World Trade Center, ISIS. Okay, so we're not one. We have to protect ourselves. And so when I hear that doesn't sound like we're all one.
Right.
Okay, so how do you address that?
So protection is necessary for sustainability of what is naturally good and normal for a person's well-being.
Okay.
But we're not just protectors, we're providers as well. We must also initiate providing the processes to allow consciousness to meet its higher purpose. The fact that most people's whose thinking brings them to violence is the fact that their thinking has fallen from a level of interest in the other person's well-being to self-interest, which is I want them to be and do what I say. So the critical thing is that we take away the fundamental principle that gives human being the natural propensity, which is to give. We are normally givers. When we decide to take something, or they're taking our jobs, or they're taking our resources, is the fact that we are actually believing in scarcity.
Yes.
And this is the critical thing about violence.
Yes.
It begins with scarcity.
Yes.
If a person lives in a feeling of abundance, the natural process is giving. And means that you actually will see alternatives to all the things that are going on in the world.
Right. And there will be those who say it is human nature to be violent and selfish. Okay. And you're saying that we can choose to believe that, or we can choose to believe the global truth, which I believe, which is that isn't human nature. Our human nature is connected to the same source nature that made the dolphins and the flowers and is about feeding and giving and contributing and to everyone's highest good. So I will say that it's a choice. I mean, someone can choose to believe that it's human nature to hurt people and to believe the worst case scenario and to believe the lack and limitation and to believe that everybody is out to get us. I mean, that's a fundamental BS belief system that you can choose, and people do choose it. A lot of people choose it. But you're offering a different way, or that interjecting that belief system that says, no, we are givers more than we're takers. We're providers more than we're selfish taking. And then that concept of abundance, which I also share with you, is that, and we have proof, there's more food on the planet to feed every starving child 10 times over, right? But the fact that we still have poverty and starvation is stemming from that belief system that if you get some, I don't, right? And I get this, I hear it all the time. Why, Dr. Marissa, do you talk about, helping people in Africa or helping people when we have starving children in our own backyard? And my response always is, let's help everywhere.
Yes. And there's the capacity for that.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah. So if we look, that some of these issues have been inherited. So some people do not take up violence because of a choice. It's a sensitivity and an unfulfilled need that results in violence. Let's go back to fundamental thing about hunger, since you mentioned it here. That if the body is starving, the body is going through internal violence. Starvation is violence to the physical body. We're not designed to starve. We're designed to be fulfilled by food, by nourishment. The body is sensitive to starvation. Now, a person may not act out. Most people do not act out violently if they're starving. But it gets to the point when people see food around them and they're starving, the natural thing is, how do I get my needs met?
All right.
And if there's not a social space for them to be able to have that need be met, if no one is paying attention to it, the consciousness will want to steal. Because it is, in a certain way, compulsory from the physical existence level that if I'm to exist, I must take. Now, if I'm just taking from nature, no problem. Nature gives.
Right.
But if I'm taking from people who says nature belongs to me, or these are my property rights and this is my stuff, then we're breaking a social covenant. And so most violence has to do with the social processes and nothing in nature, not in human nature or in great nature. Violence has to do with the social space between two or more human beings who create specific agreements of what's mine and what's yours. And if those things are violated, then we put it in relationship to violence. However, there is always the backspace to this reality is the fact that we could still design a healthier space where violence could be eliminated, because we will meet people's needs at a level in which the natural step is when these needs are met, we automatically move to a place of creativity.
Okay. So in the background, for those of you who don't know, I think the fact that you're founder of Shade Tree Multicultural Foundation and the work that you do is to, and correct me, actually you say what you're supposed to do so I don't take a guess and be wrong, because I don't like being wrong.
Well,
and that's that social structure right there. Go ahead.
Well, thank you so much. Shade Tree was founded particularly to assist young people who had been exposed to violence, who've been living in it, who inherited gang violence, who inherited these social unmet needs, to navigate themselves out of it. How do I begin to address meeting my needs? And so we created a mentorship project we call Genesis Pathway. The human being can begin. Let me continue with this idea of starving. Starvation at a certain point has to do with flows of some type of food or whatever it might be needed to nourish if that's not there. But we've taken cultural rituals that require people to fast.
Right.
Now, at the first day, it might feel like starving.
Right.
Second day might feel like starving. But in the third and fourth day, when you're committed to it, it becomes a fast that begins to nourish other capacities.
Okay.
And the body overcomes the fact that it is not persecution.
It's not being
It's
punished.
not violence.
It's not being punished.
It's not being punished. And take up a kind of creativity to allow an inner need to step in. The need for will, to overcome, to create. When this substance is impressed into the physical body, we then can come out of those cultural rituals with a certain awareness that I'm part of a whole that's always providing, always guiding, always nourishing, always creating, and I will find the relationships in the world that will meet my needs.
Okay.
So we began to support young people to find those processes, to take them up, and to a certain way meet their needs.
Okay. And I'm going to play the other side for a second.
Yes.
So a young man, okay, in LA is caught stealing, okay, or commits an act of violence.
Yes.
Okay. And so he goes to jail to pay for and be responsible for his breaking of that social construct or contract, and goes into the prison system or the juvenile system. And I had Clyde Terry on a former show, Emerging Leadership Academy, which you guys need to meet because you're doing the same thing, is providing a different solution to the consequence of being violent or the consequence of committing a crime, because that hasn't worked.
Yes.
Our system, which is based on if you do the crime, you do the time, right? And that system is not working. I have not heard one positive statistic that our traditional prison system is working. Instead, we have the highest rate of recidivism in California. We have way too many people in buildings that can't house them. It's $1 billion industry. I heard a disturbing statistic a couple weeks ago. I was having lunch with another show sponsor who tried to put a system in place to help inmates who were drug addicts.
Yes.
And it wouldn't go. It would have saved billions of tax dollars, but it didn't go because the union and the system that is really vested in keeping people in prison is not allowing it. So if for those of you who believe in if you do the crime, you pay the time, you do the time, that approach to rehabilitating people who commit crime isn't working. Okay?
Right.
If it were working, we wouldn't have more and more. We have more and more. We don't have less and less. So one of the reasons why it was very, I knew I was going to bring you on here is because your philosophy goes to that. It goes before the crime.
Right.
It goes before the violence. So for those of you who didn't have that sort of example in the background, you're saying that if people commit crime, okay, and especially right now when all I hear is, how long are we going to deal with the race issue? How long are we going to excuse people for doing crime just because of the color of their skin? If they do the crime, they should have been shot. If they do the crime, they should be, punished. And that, again, okay, in theory, that was supposed to work. But it's led us to where we are. We are, on one hand, we do a lot better when it comes to race relations. On the other hand, we don't. Right. And my assistant producer is always bringing that up to me. And it's a sensitive topic, but it requires a fundamental shift of how we look at violence. Right. And you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is there are reasons that young men and women make choices for violence that comes from a survival kind of instinct that can be shifted if we go back to their fundamental belief systems and their fundamental skills that are acquired, just like you were talking about the body and starvation. So if they're starving, instead of going to steal, they go starving and they go within and develop those skills, qualities, and abilities that allow them to make different choices. Right. Is that about?
Yes.
Okay, good.
So within nature, within human nature,
yes.
one of the fundamental things that starts in early development in childhood is speech.
Okay.
Now we take speech to mean that a person wants to communicate their needs. They want to be in relationship. They want to be in community, and they want to be in society. All these are speeches. Society is a speech. Community is a speech. They're forms of intelligences of with whom are you communicating and about what. So we go back to what do you need to say to be able to exercise your fundamental rights to a place in family, community, society that says you are entitled as a human being to negotiate those spaces and have your needs be met. When we have a society that excludes people because of so many different things, they have to create societies of their own. So gangs are a substitution for a society that neglects its young people.
Okay.
They have to create belonging. Because why? Human beings must communicate.
Right.
We may call it a conspiracy, but it's still communication
Yeah.
for their fundamental needs to be addressed.
Okay.
However, when economy is shifted to say you need these skills to be in economies, that is not often the truth. The first part of any economy is time. Where if I give my time and a person give their time, we'll create a relationship that can find everything that we need to share in the larger society. But people's time are constrained by our current cultural economy and limits belonging in a different way.
Okay, and I'm going to play again the other side for a second. Are you saying, because one of the reactions is, don't steal, get a job, right? You should be able to make money so you don't have to steal.
Right.
Okay. And you're saying that it doesn't work for certain groups of people or some groups of people. It's not that simple. It still doesn't fulfill the need.
Yes.
So, and then I'll go one more limb out, which is, are you excusing people? And if you've just tuned in, you're listening to, I forgot to do that. If you've just tuned in, you're listening to Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It, Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, with my fabulous guest, the founder of Shade Tree Multicultural Foundation, talking about the moose on the table, about violence and about gangs and about why people go to violence and how, besides sending them to prison, we reach them at a core cellular level that has to do with much more than if you do the crime, you do the time.
Yes.
But it almost sounds like, though, you're providing an excuse.
Well, I'm not.
Yes, I know you're
Stealing
not.
is a violation
you're not.
of some ethics, even
Yes.
within the person's own consciousness.
Yes.
We do not want to violate our own ethics.
Okay.
But if we have to do it to survive, most people will.
Okay.
Most people will. Now, when we look at the system as a whole, prison is stealing time from people. So when people say time is money,
Yes.
and prisoners are serving time, they're providing money to one of the largest systems in the world. This is the thing. It's designed to steal time from people. It's not to punish them. Most people do not need that much time to be punished. Most people's time in prison is generating income for somebody's jobs. This is a thing about the economy. Everybody is stealing. Some people has the right to do it by law and others don't. When we say go and get a job, most people's jobs are stealing their time from their families, from their communities. For what at the end of it? The economy is unjust not because people are not willing to participate in it. There's no equity in it. There's no shared interest in the future in it, because most people know after working 25 years on this job, there still is no future. Where does our time go? When we work within the societal structures, whereby consciousness is being constricted by the idea that we're running out of time to be able to share of all the basic needs that we have. Leisure is one of them.
Yes.
We want to be able to have a space whereby we explore creativity, we explore community, we explore possibilities beyond what society gives us as the only pathway for livelihoods.
Yeah.
This is what young people are challenging. They're not challenging the values of society itself. They're struggling with the paradigm of scarcity. Do not make our future scarce by assigning institutions that take our time and do not give us back anything. How much time do we spend in school, and at the end of it, these young people do not graduate knowing themselves or the world in a real way?
Yeah.
It is still designed for employing them in a society where other people benefits from what they do.
Yes.
This is a realization. And when you talk about them with these young people who are in the streets, they're not in the streets for protest. They're exploring a practical exploration. What are the alternatives to these forms of institutions that we're given?
The American dream that's turned into the American nightmare. Right. Yes. I thought we were going to be deep today, but I had no idea we were going to go this deep. So we need to take a quick break to thank our sponsors of today's show. And a peace out to my friend Karen and her sister, who I've known for 30 years. She's from England, and she told me that my peace in and the second part, peace out, is actually a bad sign in England. But I told her that it means we're all about changing BS and old belief systems. So I'll be back in 2, peace in, and 2, peace out.
Do you suffer from neck or back pain? Then it's time for Cacilia. Casilia is an affordable yet easy-to-use tool that is carefully engineered for wellness. Just 20 minutes a day can treat pinched nerves, back pain, neck pain, and much more. The manufacturers of Casilia are so confident that it works, it comes with a 30-day, 100% money-back guarantee. You have nothing to lose but your pain and stiffness. Casilia is personally endorsed by Dr. Marissa. To learn more, visit www.casilia.com today. That's KACELIA.com.
Do you want to be a part of a holistic solution to our broken jail system? The Emerging Leaders Academy is helping reduce the California statistic where 3 out of 4 people return to prison within their first year out. In partnership with the LA County Sheriff's Department, LA Urban League, Goodwill, Long Beach PD, and the Agape International Spiritual Center, ELA, a nonprofit program, is a transformational path to opportunities with responsibility and a recognition of the unique role we all have in this thing called life. If you would like to be a partner in someone's inside-out transformation with career development, entrepreneurship, therapeutic literacy, financial education, and hope to those who think they have no alternative than to return to jail, then be the change you want to see and become an ELA partner. Visit emergingleaders360.org today.
And welcome back. You are tuned in to Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It, Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa every Tuesday at naturally high noon out of the Sunset Gower Studio, Universal Broadcasting Network, and that's where we are today. And then you'll get the replay on Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on my NBC or CNBC now News Radio channel, KCAA AM 1050. And today it is the season of nonviolence as well as Lucky Charms. Actually, I'm going to pretend like we just caught a leprechaun because it says that if you catch a leprechaun, you're allowed to make 3 wishes. So everybody take a breath. And I'm going to let my guest, Orland Bishop, make his first 3 wishes. What would you wish? Because we've talked the first half of this show, or the first 2/3 of this show, about what isn't working when it comes to what's leading to violence. So what wishes do you have for our planet, our young people, our older generation that's having to struggle with shifting some thinking around lack and limitation?
Well, my wishes will be these, that every person has someone who's willing to be there for them, at least one person. Mm-hmm. That we also have a space whereby a person could experience sanctuary with fundamental peace within oneself, a place, and that we have the idea of time not as something that is more, but something that's within. That I have something in me that I have to give to the world. That people come to knowing that. For me, those are the 3 things that generates abundance. And we'll have more of everything if we could hold a space for those 3 qualities of human experience.
It's almost like we were born knowing that.
Yes.
And then we are told that, this is, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't that, or people are going to hurt you, lock your car, that it's your job to do really well and get the best grades so you can get in the best school so that you can get the best job. And there's rarely talk about the value of what you're spending your time doing. I get them in my coaching clients, but they usually hit that midlife crisis thing until they ask those questions. What is it that I'm supposed to be doing? So it sounds like you're saying that everyone has a unique gift, talent, and ability on the planet, and that the time is spent being intimate with that for the rest of their lives.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we try to do that process before or during adolescence, if we can, because it sets the chemistry, the brain chemistry, to be able to take up creativity and allow the brain to go through the progression of developing into adulthood and beyond. Yeah. If it doesn't happen at adolescent, it has to happen at midlife. The human being comes back to the same kind of chemistry need to be internally balanced at midlife. So midlife crisis is another stage of adolescence.
Yes, yes. I love midlife crisis. They call me the midlife crisis interventionist.
Because in a certain way we have to in a certain way correct
yeah.
the internal judgments that we've imposed upon ourselves, what the environment has impressed upon us.
Yeah.
We have to in a certain way come back to the question of who am I in our world. And so we get another chance at that, and probably more than just one.
Yeah.
But I think if the human being, the child, is given that early enough, the brain develops the capacity to find alternatives. So grammar, when we say that the grammar or language gives us only these words, the mind, however, could understand wordless meaning. Meaning it does not need to be stuck with the forms of intelligences that our society instructs.
Okay. So
we could overcome that.
Okay. So have you always talked like this? Speaking about language.
I think this way. I don't
Sorry.
know. I think this way, and as a result, I talk this way. But I think the first thing is
no, it's wonderful. It's wonderful.
I hope it's been understood.
No, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. I just couldn't resist. I'm still going against the construct of being married to a man for my sentence was 9.2 years, and every day he would tell me, "You're not funny. You're not funny." So I'm spending the rest of my life proving that I can be funny. Yeah. But let seriously. Yes. You were born where?
I was born in Guyana.
Guyana.
Yes.
And beautiful country.
Yes.
And what made you begin to do this work? Like, when did you discover that you had a gift to do what you do?
Well, my interest was to go into medicine. I was in my process of studying medicine, health science, and a young friend who was addicted to drugs came to my home to stay, and we discovered that he had an underlying illness, and he was diagnosed with HIV/AIDS. But in the time, I remember when I took him to get the results of his tests, and he came out crying, and he asked, "Am I going to die?" Well, in a general sense, we all know at some point, yes. But this question as a youth was, how do I live with what I now know? And so I had to engage that conversation with him. How do you live with what you know? Whatever that knowledge is, can you live with it? And so we had to explore how to live with knowing that not only you might die, but very soon, or you might suffer through these various crises of life. So it became an initiatory exploration. Initiation now is how to live so freely that if death happens,
it's not a big deal.
It's not, you die living out something that is more meaningful. So he took me on this journey for 3 years.
I gotta remember that. Die living. How do you die living?
So this journey happened for 3 years, and right before he died, I was visiting with him at a hospice, and his words to me were, "You better do what you're here to do." And I asked, "Well, what is that?" And he said, "Don't play games with me. You know what you're here to do, and if you don't do it, you will regret it." And I put a chair by his bed, and as I sat in contemplation of this question, my own inner experience revealed something to me, that it was not what I was pursuing that made my interest in healing. I wanted to have a level of conversation with a human being that allows a level of agreement to be met, whereby through that agreement we can agree about any kind of future, and even any kind of healing, any kind of miracle, if you want to call it that. Because human agreements are the source of all future realities. By ourselves, we cannot enter certain realities on our own, by our own self-interest. We must be in dialogue, and we must be in not only dialogue, but a dialogue of understanding what the future is asking of us. So when our friend Lazar died, January of 1995, Shade Tree was founded February of 95. I resigned from my career path.
Which was?
Medicine.
Okay. So you were a doctor?
No, I was studying into that space.
Okay.
But what I realized, what was recovered, was a consciousness to say healing could become self-guided, self-directed, self-inspired, And not just only for healing of the physical body, which is what I was studying, but for me, the fundamental thing that caused that illness and many others is the social question. Can we heal the social space whereby if human beings can share more, less illness will be in the world? And that is what I understood in those 3 years.
Right. And then you went and were instrumental or a partner in an effort to bring down gang violence in LA.
Yeah, I was studying gang violence and other kinds of violence, cultural violence, at the Center for the Study of Violence and Social Change at Charles Drew University of Medicine. And in my fellowship there with that initiative, I started to research how to bring experiences to young children who had been exposed to violence. So we did some at schools in Inglewood, schools in Los Angeles, in providing sanctuary, which means to take them out of all adult conceptions and allow them to be children.
How old?
These were first through fifth graders.
Okay.
And so what I trained the mentors to do, do not instruct anything. Create acceptance of them and see what happens. Now, when you give a child freedom of thought, when your thinking around them is freedom for them to express, they will ask your advice when they're in doubt. And this is what these children did. They ask intelligent questions because they trust that you will tell them the truth.
So but how would you deal with the child that hit another child?
Oh, have them to talk about it.
But
bring them into dialogue.
Okay. The 2 kids.
Yes.
The
So
2 kids.
we
and
work.
what would that sound like?
Well, can you tell me what caused you to hit him or her?
Well, they took my lunch.
Well, were you interested in sharing it?
No, because it's really good and my mom made it and there's a note in there and it's mine.
Okay. And what do you want me to do now?
Let me off the hook, because if he didn't take my lunch, I wouldn't have hit him.
Well, I ask you, can you ask him why did he take it?
Why did you take my lunch?
I was hungry.
Well, where's your lunch?
I don't have any.
Well, why not?
My mother doesn't have any to give me.
Well, that's not my problem.
No. And that's why we're here to learn how to share interests in what each other goes through. We have to be able to say that when a person comes into your space, they're bringing with them everything that they're going through. And sometimes you have to be able to ask, do you need something? Do you ask your friends, do you need something?
Rarely.
Rarely.
No, I'm kidding. I do.
Or adults, what do you need from me to be able to be and do what you have to be doing now?
Yeah.
The thing about the perception of human beings, our perception naturally tells us someone needs something, but we override that. Well, this is mine. I can't share it.
Right.
So this is the idea that this is mine is a problem for the human being, because what is ours really? If we're willing to share it, it's not mine, it's ours. And when we move this to this level, the social will is an extension of our personal will and our personal interest, self-interest. And at that level, what happens is that when we began to bring food into the school and share different things, they shared it. There was no longer, this is mine. And this is really what improved the classroom. In fact, these children did better academically because they shared the classroom differently.
Yeah, that's a huge shift. And that is that shift that is based on there's more than enough. So if there's more than enough, then sharing becomes natural. But if we believe that there isn't enough and there's a fixed pie, and if I get some, you don't, and if you get some, I don't, then we're going to continue what we're continuing.
Yes.
That is absolutely, but okay. But there isn't it isn't abundant. Marissa, you are Pollyanna, stick your head in the sand, and the reality is there's a fixed amount of gas, there's a fixed amount of minerals, there's a fixed amount of water, and we're screwing up our future for our kids because there's a limited amount of elephants. There's just, it's all nice and good that you're saying this, but the reality is it is a fixed pie.
It's a fixed pie because we choose to live in a fixed place. the places where there are actually water. And let me give you one example. Below the Sahara are the largest freshwater lakes in the world. But it's a desert on top. And what happens is that no one wants to live there. No one has the imagination yet to say this is habitable, or the creativity to say let us utilize this process and irrigate the world. We live in places because they give us our frameworks of needs, our frameworks of civilization and culture, and we prefer that over the work that this planet requires of human beings.
So it is really asking everyone to do a hard reset.
And inhabit this planet and stop inhabiting those domains of culture. So when we come to the habitat of the planet, we then take personal responsibility for the ecology of this planet, which we could replenish. What is causing the disruption and scarcity on particularly just water and food level is the fact that we're destroying those ecosystems as a culture in pursuit of creating more things for an urban space, that cities that we prefer to occupy. We don't really live into this world. We live into our cultures and our specialized interests of this world. And that's what we've colonized this planet to meet our needs, and we're not living in an ecology of consciousness of asking what this planet needs from me to be able to
Again, it's that
sustain.
It's
It's mine.
versus it's ours.
Right.
And I woke up one day with that term. Until we get to global citizenship, until it's more important that we are connected to each other than it is that we are an American, then we will always have what we're having, which is this separation and damage and war and violence.
Right, and there's the colonization and imperialism is still the dominant violence on this planet. We want to take from nature and make it private.
Yes.
We want to take from the earth and make it
Ours.
corporate. We do not want to share this planet and have not designed a system of healthy enterprises for what you just termed global citizenship. If people understand globalization is not in a certain way corporations just extending their reach around the world.
Right.
But globalization is a relationship to the world. And if people, wherever they are in the local reality, can have a relationship to this ecology, they will be able to impact it.
So as a listener, what would we ask for all of us to do differently? One thing that we could do differently to move towards that kind of globalization.
Consumption. We should choose to consume less of everything that we are buying and purchasing in our economy. If you can afford to consume less, please do, because our consumption is at a rate in which we are we're meeting our needs far more than
that we don't actually need it.
We don't need a lot of the things we don't need.
Yeah, we're living on that selfish I want.
Right, and so if we go back to the fundamental needs and the work of Max Neef and others who have explored this, to say that if the needs are met, then our wants can be examined. And most things what we're consuming has to do with our wants and not with our needs.
Yeah.
And so we want more. And in order to do that, we have to take from everything that has.
And everyone.
And is the taking that's causing the less.
Right.
So it's not that the earth doesn't. The earth's intelligence is to create in cycles. And the earth knows when to replenish itself. But we are overextending our time on this earth. We're reaching far into the future of the material world and not into the future in ourselves. If we can go into the future in ourselves, we can bring creativity to this world and replenish it. But we're not doing the internal search.
Yes. Wonderful.
We're still searching for oil and searching for diamonds and gold.
Yes. How do we find you?
Shaytree Multicultural Foundation. We are on Facebook. We are on the web. Our website is still being developed currently.
Evolving.
And redoing it. And it can be reached at area code 562-531-1383 is our message line, and mobile number 714-206-6769.
Wonderful. And you can replay this when this comes out on iTunes or on YouTube to get that phone number if you want to work with Orland Bishop and work with his very wonderful projects. You're on Global Oneness as well. I see you everywhere. So there's many ways to intersect. And in the meantime, less is more, I think, is the message for us on consumerism, and I'm perfectly guilty. And I also have another little bit of homework, which I liked and I got from this talk, which is instead of what do I want, how can I serve you? I like that. How can I serve you as a friend? So I know my friends are all going to be waiting for me to ask them that this week. But thank you so much,
Dr.
Orland
Marissa,
Bishop.
I'm so happy to have been here with you and spend this time. Thank you so much for inviting
thank you.
us.
谢谢. And we have a couple of minutes to wrap up with our Balance Bar. Welcome to it. And the first Asian Oprah giveaway today is $50 deposit to my Sedona retreat. So normally it's $50 to hold the space, but if you, the first person to message or email me or sign my contact form on my website and say free deposit, you will get $50 off of the retreat, and it's only $800 for on all it's not all expenses, but you do get a whole balance weekend with me in the beautiful Red Rocks of Sedona, Arizona. And we're staying, and it includes one night at the luxurious Los Abrigados Resort and Spa. So that is coming up May 16th and 17th. If you have been following on my 21-day fast from complaining, today is day 17, and the balance tip today is, are you more likely to be attractive or less attractive if you are not complaining? Not a trick question, but today is looking at all the benefits, including attractiveness, that you get from not complaining. It is round 46 coming up on April Fool's No Foolin' Day for the fast. And as always, if you would like to help me make an app out of this fast, I'm now collecting and crowd fundraising at GoFundMe/HRAXLO, and $5 will help me out. And we just spent this last week, my daughter and her friend, creating some wonderful categories so that when you do complain, you hit a red button and all these funny kind of sounds come out, and at the end of the day you'll know how well you did. And if you didn't complain all day, you get bells and whistles and winner chicken dinner. So it's going to be a great fun game app. So if you'd like to support me, you can go there. And next week it's going to be a fun show around horoscopes. Is it in the stars, or is it in the stars? And this whole field that has people going to their horoscopes to find out what to do. Is horoscopes really truth, or is it just, something fun, or is there any truth to when you were born, and does that actually impact how you see yourself or see the world? We're going to have Rachel from Blissin' Up, who is another show on Universal Broadcasting Network, coming to read my horoscope, as well as my friend Tawana Floyd, and we'll probably do my kids as well. So if you're interested in horoscopes, please do tune in next Tuesday on Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It. Get Balance with Dr. Marissa Pay. That's P for positive, EI, and remember, it's all about balance. Peace in and peace out. All right.
How dark it is before the dawn, for I am weak and he is strong. He lifts me